Welcome back to another episode of Morning Coffee. I'm your host, Rick Alexander. You guys can interact with me or follow me at @RickAlexander_ or at the Morning Coffee Podcast on Instagram. Now, if you're getting a lot from this show, if it's changing your life or even changing the way that you look at your life, it would mean the world to me if you would head to iTunes and give us a 5-star review so that we can continue to climb the charts and get this information to more and more people. Over the last year and a half, I've focused my work on the story that we tell ourselves about our lives. Your entire life is a bit of a story that you're telling yourself. And if you could tell yourself a different story, you could probably change your life quite a bit. And so I did that work for the release of my newest book, which is coming out in early 2020. But getting excited for that release, I actually wanted to go through a lot of the information that I had learned, a lot of my notes, and synthesize it into maxims, which is what we're getting into today. I've got 21 maxims to maximize your life, and what these are is just things that seem to be true about the human experience, and if you could understand how they are true, you could understand how they could change your life. And so if you go to rickalexander.com, what you're going to find is if you click on articles, the maxim of the day is going to be posted, whatever the last maxim was, and it's also going to have journal entries and thought experiments in there so that you can figure out how to apply these things to your own lives. And so a bit of an interactive experience. So throughout the next year, through my speaking, through my book release, and through these maxims, I'm excited to see how this information can really change the world and change your world if you give it an opportunity to. Man, we made it. We finally arrived at the last maxim, the last day of the November series, 21 Maxims to Maximize Your Life. And in this series, one of the things that you've probably noticed quite a bit from me is that everything I'm pushing on is perspective, because this series was born of the work I did for my new book. And a lot of my new book is just trying to find the right perspective. Like if you can find the right perspective to view the things that are already happening in your life, you see that you're not so constricted in your ability to maneuver. And that's why it matters so much, because oftentimes the perspective that we have leaves us with certain limitations and certain walls, and we don't feel like things are available to us. And if you want your life to be different, if you want there to be something else, and then what matters is the perspective that you have, because you have to see the other path. You've got to know that it's okay to travel down it. And until you do, you're going to be chained to your old belief system or the world that you grew up in. I remember when I was in 6th grade, and I don't have a lot of memories from these early times in my life, but I remember where we would line up for the bus to go home every day, there was a sign that said, "Knowledge is power." And I would always read it, and I would try to think about, like, well, why is knowledge power? And fundamentally, I think it's easy for anyone to get behind that concept, right? Because it's like if you understand how things work, then you have the power to change them, right? You have the power to do something different. But I would also say that there's a caveat there, and because this poster came from a school system that didn't actually care about this caveat, it's not crazy that none of us would understand this. But the thing to understand to be true is that knowledge without the right utility is powerless, right? And so it doesn't matter if you know a bunch of things if those things can't change your life. If you don't see a route to application, then it doesn't matter if you have that knowledge or not. One of the things I talk about quite often is that instead of just trying to memorize things so that you can repeat things, actually learn, understand concepts. You could memorize a whole book worth of information. And if you ever want to talk about that book, you can talk about it in the way that you learned it, right? The way that you read it. And so most of us are doing that. We're reciting information. But what could be more beneficial is if you just understand how a concept works. If you understand how it actually applies to your life, you then have the ability to maneuver right and left, and you're not so stuck in just reciting what it is that you know, right? It's like when you understand a concept and how that would actually apply to your life, then you're free to use it. And so that's why a lot of the stuff that we learned in school isn't so helpful right now, right? It's like that common theme that you see on Instagram. It's like during tax season when people talk about how it's not parallelogram season, but we never learned taxes, but we did learn parallelograms. And so here we are. Well, it's like math is used every single day. You could actually explain the entire universe with math. And I would actually say that you could explain religion with math as well. But what's interesting is that's one perspective. It's not one that we're given, certainly not one we're given in school. We're just taught to be taught. And then if we don't see the application for it, you can remember back to when you were in school. You're like, I'm never going to need to know this. And you tell yourself that. And the reason you tell yourself that is because you don't know why you would need to know this. You don't know when you would need to know this. And so as you take the reins in your own life, and as you are stepping into what you want for yourself, understand everything that you hear, everything, if it feels like it could be true, understand that there's got to be a route to application in order for this thing to actually change your life. It's like, if you learn something that's intriguing, find out why. Find out why that thing might actually be true and how it might actually change your life. And so one of the things that you're looking for as you gain knowledge is the perspective that allows you to apply that knowledge. One of the mathematical concepts I talk about a lot in my own life is chaos theory. You know, what chaos theory is this principle that says there's an underlying pattern to everything that seems chaotic. And so there's a completeness to everything that seems broken, is another way that you could say that. But if you can deduce why that's actually true, that is information that can really change your life, right? Because when you're going through things that feel like are really broken, like times that are really broken, if you understand that on the bottom of everything in this world, everything that seems chaotic, everything that seems random, there's not 1 ounce of randomness to it. And so the reason I wanted to include this maxim is because I know that in the age of information is not what you need, right? Like, the information to change your life is already out there. That is for sure. And it's also free, right? You could put together an entire, probably 3 or 4 course curriculum just based on the podcast that I put out. Like, you could do a choose your own adventure, and you could create a really intense curriculum to change your own life based on what I put out. But again, that would require is that you would go through it and create a really intense curriculum in order to change your own life, right? And so the knowledge, if you just listen to it, it's like, oh, that could be novel, could be cool, could be interesting to know, but it won't change your life, right? And so the knowledge only becomes power when there's an aspect of utility to it, because there's a lot of frivolous shit out there. There's a lot of things that you can know that aren't going to change your life in any way. And so what you should be looking for as you absorb more knowledge is how you could make that knowledge into power. It's not inherently so, right? Just having knowledge doesn't lend itself to power. That knowledge has to possess a certain utility in order to really change your life. And so as you learn more about the world, what you also gain is the responsibility to find the tactics buried in that knowledge, to find out how that could actually change your life or do something else for you. And without that, it'll just be something else that takes up your bandwidth but doesn't move you any closer to who you want to be. And I don't want that for you, just like I don't want it for me. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the 21 maxims to maximize your life. Again, if you go to rickalexander.com, you can check all of these out along with journaling assignments. So if you want to really delve into this stuff and make it, sort of apply it to your own life and see where it might help you or affect you, then I would push you to go to rickalexander.com and do that. Anyway, I love you. Have an amazing day. We'll talk later.